Hello, everybody.
I can't hear
Welcome
you. Oh, there
back
you are.
to the Best Version of You recap. And let me make sure that we are good to go here. Right. All right, perfect. I love it. Okay, welcome back to week 2 of the Best Version of You July Book Club. If you are catching this replay in our group, or maybe you are catching it on the Mama Collective podcast, welcome back. I'm so glad that you are here. This week, we are diving into chapters 4 and 5, and I wanted to really keep this pretty short. Really, the point of these calls that we do is to recap the chapter. Hopefully you are taking advantage of reading the book yourself, and then getting on these calls is just to help us get a different perspective. We all take things differently because of our past experiences, and things that we are currently going through in our life. So when we are reading these things, having a different perspective is always key. Now, if you are watching this or you're hearing this and you're like, I'm kind of behind, you're not behind. Jump on to the link. If you're watching the podcast, the link is in the show notes. You can jump on, you can still register and opt in. It'll show you how to get the book. It'll plug you into the free Facebook group. You can get the book for free, and you can dive right in with us. There is no being late. You are right on time. You're right where God has placed you to be. And as just one thing that I definitely wanted to mention as we continue to go on with these weeks is, taking advantage of those questions that are at the end of every chapter and getting plugged into that Facebook group and doing kind of that homework, right? Like, this isn't something that's supposed to add, another task to your day, but really going through those questions, answering those questions, and figuring out, how can I apply what I'm learning to my life and where I'm at right now? That is going to help you get the most from this book. And not even from this book, but these are, if you're reading personal development and you're reading something, even the Bible, right? Asking questions. How can I apply this to my life? What can I learn from this? That helps us to get a better understanding. And so I just highly encourage you, do the homework, answer those questions, plug into the Facebook group. I have posts in there throughout the week that have some of the questions, and just kind of share your biggest takeaways, because as a community, we literally get to do this together and learn from each other and see, oh my gosh, Becky learned this from this chapter, and oh wow, what a good takeaway. I didn't even think of it this way. Or, Susie learned this, and wow, I never thought of it that way, because we all, like I said, have different experiences, life experiences. And we're all in different seasons of life. So what applies to me may not apply to you at that season, but later down the road, as you reread things, as you go through this book, you might go, oh, you know what? Now this hits, and it hits different. And I want to make sure that I give some time at the end for some Q&A. If anybody has any coaching stuff, I'm totally willing to do a hot seat coaching call. Becky is laughing. If you are not watching the video, but you're catching this, Becky's laughing, and it's so fun because she's the one who's here. So Becky gets to be our hot seat call today, and I love that. So let's dive right in. We're going to go right into chapter 4. And this is where Josh starts really talking about the motivation hack, right? And, how many times have maybe you said or heard someone say, I'm just not feeling motivated? As a health and wellness coach, this is something I hear all the time. As a business coach, this is something I hear all the time. I'm not motivated to work out. And it was really interesting that these are the chapters that we're working on, because I had a coaching call with a client yesterday, and she was like, I'm just not motivated. And I was trying to pull it out of her and be like, well, tell me more about that. What do you think this is? And she made it. It's funny how we view motivation as this external thing, right? I need someone to motivate me. I need this, this, and this to feel motivated in order to take action. And during the call, she actually said to me, she goes, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you stay motivated. And so I think that there's this huge misconception that people who maybe are successful in areas of their life wake up every morning and like, yeah, I'm motivated. Let's go. Let's do this. When in reality, for me personally, I am not motivated every day to get up and to do the things that I know that I need to do and that I want to do in order to make progress towards my goals. Whether it's getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go have time to read my Bible, to go work out and just have some quiet time before the baby gets up at 6, or whether it's going to press play on my workout when maybe I'm sore or I'm really tired, or maybe it's sitting down to work my business when I'm just like, the kids are sick. All 3 kids are sick this week. And I'm like, oh, I'm just not motivated. So nobody wakes up with that motivation every single day. If there are people like that, I would actually say that it's not motivation what drives them. It is what Josh calls inspiration that drives them. And so lack of motivation, and I love it when Josh said this, he's like, lack of motivation is basically just a feeling. It's a gimmick, right? It's a feeling. And we put so much emphasis on how that feeling of motivation is keeping us from reaching our goals. But as we learned last week, our feelings can come and go. One moment I might be feeling like high on life, like this is amazing, life is great. And literally then I'm dealing with like a 3-year-old temper tantrum. And then I am cranky, I am irritable, and I feel like a failure. Right. And so our feelings go up and down like a roller coaster. And if we're constantly relying on the quote feeling of motivation, we're never going to be motivated. We may hit a peak and then we may go back down into the valley. We may hit a peak. There's never that consistency. And Josh says, well, instead of motivation, which really comes from these external outside circumstances, shifting that to inspiration, which is more of an internal stimulus that helps us to shift from the feeling to really creating in us and seeing the things that are already in us to help us do what we got to do. And so when he was talking about inspiration, he talked about 2 things. The first thing that he talked about was the life vision. And anyone who's been around the personal growth circle, the coaching circle that knows like Tony Robbins, if you listen to me or follow me, you know that my mindset coach, Brad Bizjack, talks about this a lot, about creating a compelling vision for your life. And that's really saying, okay, what do I want my life to look like if it was a perfect, like if all circumstances were perfect, what would this look like? What would I want? What would I do? Where would I go? And the book has some really awesome vision questions and exercises to help you walk through that. So again, I highly encourage you, walk through that, go through that, answer those questions, because if we don't have a compelling vision for where we want to go in life, then we're just literally going to stay stuck. I know one of the things for me, I was thinking about this past week is, and I know Josh talked about his experience in the book, but for me, I was thinking about when I grew up, I didn't grow up living in, like, we lived in a really tiny ranch house, and we lived in a not so great city, and our neighborhood, like, we had bricks thrown through our windows. Our house had got shot into once. We lived across the street from these really sketchy apartments. And I remember specifically this one time growing up, and I was in high school, and we used to have these trips to Washington, D.C. And my mom and dad, my dad was a truck driver, and my mom worked a couple jobs here and there. I think at this time she was teaching Head Start. So it's not like we had tons of money. And there was this big trip to Washington, D.C. All my friends were going, they were getting on the bus, they were going, and we could not afford it. And every time that trip came up every year, it was like, no, you can't go. And I missed out on those opportunities. Oh my gosh, I'm like tearing up because it just brings back a lot for me. I made the decision at that time, like, I don't want that for my kids. I don't want to have to say no to my kids because we can't afford it. And oh, long story short, when I had the opportunity and grew up and started, like, we started thinking about a family, I met John, we started thinking about having a family. That's when this idea of this life vision came into my life. And I was like, what would I want my life to look like for my kids? And one of the biggest things is I want to be able to say yes to them. I want to be able to take them on any trips that they want. I want to be able to buy them clothes whenever they want. I want to be able to buy Raphael's medical equipment without having to worry about whether insurance is going to deny it or any of those things. Like, that drives me. I want to be around and be healthy for my kids because I don't want anybody to have to take care of Raphael. Like, that's my vision for my life. And that is so much powerful than motivation because that drives me to get out of bed. And if you don't have an internal drive that makes you wake up every single morning and say, I'm going to show up and be the best version of me, then you're just going to coast through life and rely on motivation to pull you along, to push you along. The second thing that Josh talks about is life mission. And he says in the book that, your life mission is the thing that you feel compelled to fix in the world. And vision is awesome. Vision is a lot of what you want for yourself, what you want for your kids. Where life mission is, what can I do for others? Because there are so many people. Tony Robbins said this, and he was like, success without fulfillment is the biggest failure, right? If you have success, maybe you're rich, maybe, you lose all the weight, whatever success looks like to you, but you are not feeling fulfilled. You are not giving. You are not sharing resources, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's your knowledge. If you don't have a mission and you are not moved by things that are going on in the world that you see that you hate, that bring you to absolute tears, and you're like, somebody needs to step up and make a difference, that's going to be the thing that helps pull your vision along and helps pull you towards, again, the inspiration to go out and do those hard things. Because it's not going to be motivation, right? It's going to be that inspiration, that life mission, your life vision. And the quote that I wrote down that I loved the most is, Josh said, I once heard that when you find the thing in the world that brings tears to your eyes, you have found your conviction and your calling. And I don't know where you fall in this life, in your journey. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know what you're currently going through. And I sure can't paint a picture of the future for you. But if you have walked through something and you have overcome something, or you feel so deeply moved about something that's going on that literally, like, you get fired up, you get this righteous anger and this thing, you're like, I need to do something, I need to change that. That's when you need to lean into that. That's when you need to lean in and say, what is God trying to teach me through this? What is my next step? What is my mission? And a lot of times our mission is the very thing that we have walked through ourselves. It's that hardship, that trial, maybe trials, but it's the very thing that could have broken you and maybe did break you for a season, but then you learned how to navigate through it. You learned how to walk through it. And now you're on the other side. And now you get to use that as your superpower. But you have to make a decision, to let that be your superpower and not let it be the thing that continues to drag you back into mediocrity. When you can decide, like, my pain, what I've walked through, what I'm currently walking through is no longer going to hold me back because somebody else needs this. Somebody else needs me to show up as the best version of myself so that they can walk through it. That is your mission. Lean into that. So moving on to chapter number 5. Chapter number 5, I have to be honest, as a Christian, as a Jesus follower, the words universe, things like that, it kind of, I don't want to say triggers me because that is such a word that is just thrown out there so often, but I always like lend ears to pause when I start to hear things like that. And I know Josh personally, and I know his heart, I know where he comes from. And I know that writing this book, he really did do it to make it really inclusive to everyone who reads it. I want to apply this to us as Jesus followers, assuming that you follow me, knowing that I'm a Christian, knowing that, Jesus is the reason, that he is our answer. He is our hope and salvation. We're going to look at this from a biblical lens. We're going to look at this from a point of view and really see what God's word has to say about it. Because we do know that God is the God of the universe, right? God is the God of the universe. So I believe in my heart when I'm interpreting this chapter, and maybe you are the same and you're a Jesus follower and you're like, I don't know, Amanda, like, what are you getting me into? I want to encourage you to look at it from a biblical lens. Also paying attention and keeping in mind that we don't have to always, like, if you read or hear something, maybe a mentor says something, maybe you hear something, you don't always have to take everything everybody says like that's the absolute truth. Our absolute truth should always come from the word of God. So we have to be able to compare it to the word of God and really use wisdom and discernment when we're reading anything. And you don't have to take everything everybody says. So I just want to put that out there too, because I know some people are like, oh, I don't know. So chapter 5 is about getting the universe on your side. And he talks about 2 principles that he believes are the core principles of the entire planet. And he says, if you use them properly, they'll change your life forever. And if you ignore them, you will make life 100 times harder than it needs to be. And the first law that he talks about is this law of sowing and reaping. And I'm sure that you have heard about this principle in the Bible because it is mentioned numerous times. And I'm going to whip out my phone because I wanted to make sure that I pulled up these verses for you. So if we are talking about the law of sowing and reaping, we're going to go right into Galatians. And if we go into the book of Galatians, in chapter 6, Paul is talking to the church in Galatia, and he says, don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. That is the law of sowing and reaping. You reap what you sow. I think I know he used this analogy in the book, but I think about, I'm growing a garden. That is no easy feat, by the way, if there's any gardeners out there watching or listening to this. And I actually started from seeds this year. And I went back in the back and I had these pepper seeds and I went back and I planted them. And I was like, okay, I'm going to plant these seeds. I'm going to plant these seeds. And I planted them and I'm just sitting here. I still haven't seen anything yet. Or if there has been something, I may have pulled them out thinking they're weeds. I don't even know. But the whole point is, like, when we are planting, we are sowing something. We are always sowing something, whether it's something good or whether it's something bad. It could even be we're sowing like things that are indifferent, but whatever we sow, we are going to reap. And then if we go to 2 Corinthians, I love that 2 Corinthians is right by Galatians, chapter 9, verse 6. And it says, remember this, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. And in this verse, or in this passage, if we look at the context of it, Paul was really talking about generosity. He was talking about giving and how generosity comes from our heart. But what Josh says is in here is just like a gardener, you have to keep watering and protecting your seed until you eventually get what you want. And what he means is we are those seeds. Everything that we need, we already have inside of us. We have already been, like, if we think about it as Christians, as Jesus followers, we have been instilled with the Spirit of God. We have the Holy Spirit that lives inside of us, right? And so because we have the Holy Spirit living inside of us, we already have the supernatural power inside of us. We already have the fruits of the Holy Spirit inside of us. We are the seed. Now, we have to continue growing, watering, protecting ourselves, what we put out into the world, what we put into our families. We have to continue to watch over that, but we can't just sit here and look over. If you're watching the video, you'll see me like looking over, but we can't just watch over our crops and go, okay, I just planted the seed and I'm just going to sit here and stare at it. And it's been a month and nothing's happening. I can't see anything. We don't know what's going on inside the seed. We don't know what's going on beneath the soil. So continue to reap or sow, and then you will reap. Okay. Don't compare your journey. Don't compare your dream to anybody else's timeline. We think, well, Susie, hi, Susie, I see you, girl. We think, well, Susie's roses they're blooming. They look amazing. And mine are still just sitting here like nothing. I don't even got one bud on them. And we do that so often in our lives, especially in this day of social media, where we have constantly people like somebody's success is here, or somebody's perfectly curated Instagram or Facebook. And we're like, oh, wow, they really have it all together. They're successful. But then we're like, I suck. I don't even see the fruits of my labor. But what we don't see is all the hard work and all the effort and time that they have put into it in order to begin there. You got to be able to be okay with your own timeline and to accept and understand that you are in the process of growing and changing. And even if you can't see it yet, it's still happening inside of you. And I love that Josh said on page 67, he said, it is your head voice, the voice of scarcity, that wants to see the success of other people and use it as an excuse why you can't do it. But the heart voice, that voice of abundance, is going to look at someone else's success and thank them for paving a path for you. Abundance will see that there is something that you can learn from them, even if you're not on the same path. And so asking yourself, again, those questions, when you find yourself going into comparison mode, or maybe you're jealous of somebody else and what you see are their successes, and maybe you're not there yet, really stopping to ask yourself, okay, is this coming from my head or is this coming from my heart? And then once you identify the place where it's coming from, walking yourself through what we talked about last week and asking yourself those questions. Well, what would God think? What does the voice of abundance say about this? What does the voice of faith, of hope, of potential, of possibility say about this? What would I tell my kids if they came to me and said that they were struggling with being jealous of someone else, right? The second is the second law that Josh talks about is the law of seeking and finding. And this one I directly got from Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 and 8. And again, this is Jesus talking in these verses, and he's talking about effective prayer. He's doing the Sermon on the Mount, and he's telling the disciples and all of the thousands of people that came to gather, he's teaching them on effective prayer. And Josh is like, this is a universal principle that actually goes hand in hand with the law of sowing and reaping. If we are sowing seeds, this law says you will find whatever you seek. And in Matthew, it says at verse 7, keep on asking and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking and you will find. Keep on knocking and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. Everyone who seeks finds. And to everyone who knocks, the door will be opened for you. And what this law is really saying is you have to have faith. You have to have faith that the seeds that you're sowing are going to come to fruition. Look for it. If you want to start seeing good things in your life, start looking for good things. If our brains are constantly hardwired to seek what we are looking for, and we're constantly looking for negative things or excuses or reasons why we can't, then we're going to constantly manifest the results that just prove to our head voice and that belief that we can't do it, right? We're literally creating our own chaos and madness. But if we can take this law and apply it and start seeking for the things that are good, start seeking the positive things in life, start seeking out those things that even though we can't see it yet, our heart voice is like, you know what? I believe that the possibility is there. I have faith that this is going to work out for me, that I am going to see it. And I think this is the chapter where he was talking about when he had bought the 4Runner and how he had bought the 4Runner. And maybe you've experienced this yourself where you want something, like maybe you want a new car. We, a couple years ago, got a minivan. I don't even want to talk about it, but it's been a blessing. So we got a minivan, and we got this minivan, and all of a sudden I started seeing like these silver Toyota, I don't even know the name of it. I should know it. But anyway, it's a nice minivan with the doors that open automatically. I started seeing them everywhere, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that people were like driving these things. I thought like we were the only ones. Nope. But because now my brain is in tune for it, and now I know to like seek these things, now my brain's like, hey, there's that gold Toyota, whatever it is, right over there, right? So if we're constantly looking for the good, looking for the hope and the potential, then we're going to start to see more of that. And our limiting beliefs are always looking for a way to justify our fears and excuses. So if we keep showing up and we keep looking for reasons why we can't succeed, we're going to find them. But if we start looking for reasons why we can succeed, why we can make change in our life, why we can do XYZ, whatever that looks like for you, we start seeing that, that's when we are going to be like, okay, I see it now. Our brain will constantly start to look for that. And the rest of the chapter, he talks a lot about the affirmations, the trust affirmations, and how really the difference between the because affirmations is, the because affirmations are something that we tell ourselves to like get ourselves to do the right work. But the trust affirmations train our brains to just trust God and to be patient in waiting, which I don't know about you, but I know for me, I am not very patient. I do not like to wait. And if you're on video, you see Becky laughing at me because Becky knows I do not like to wait. I want something and I want it right now. And I think that a lot of us can relate to that. We want something and we want it right now. And we live in this microwave society that's like, you can just pop it in the microwave and it's good to go in like 3 minutes. Here's a business. You can just start this business and you'll be rich in 3 months. And then in 3 months, you're still broke as heck. I almost swore. You are broke as heck. And you are sitting here like, this is a joke, right? And then you give up. But when we are diligent and say, okay, I'm going to continue to show up and do the work and be patient and trust, especially, I think, especially for us as Jesus followers, if we can give our things to God, if we can give the things that we want, our successes, our goals, our life vision, our life mission, if we can give them to God and we can leave them at the foot of the cross and say, okay, God, like, this is cool. This is what I'm going for. Like, give me some wisdom, give me some guidance in here. And then like, you will get confirmation from the Holy Spirit that things are moving, right? God is so cool like that. He will give you confirmation that you are on the right track. But we also have to trust. We have to rely on him. There are things that we're not going to be able to do in our own strength. And there are things that we can do in our own strength, but God doesn't want us to do things in our own strength. God wants us to rely on him. And it's in those moments of weakness, in those moments of waiting impatiently, when we're clawing at the walls, trying to get out of the prison that we built up for ourselves, thinking that it has to look a certain way by a certain time and this and this and this, that is when we can just say, okay, God, you know what? I did what I can do. I sowed them seeds. I'm going to go ahead and trust that you are going to handle it. I'm going to trust that you're going to handle it. And I'm going to keep showing up and trust that every time I show up, you're behind the scenes making things happen. That is like, okay. When I tell myself that, I'm like, okay, I think I can handle this. And so the one thing that I took away, that I wrote down, that I loved, is that affirmation that he sat laid in the pool and said to himself. He said, I'm in the right place at the right time, connecting with the right people and learning the next right lesson. When you can find something that really resonates with you, that you can say to yourself over and over, that pulls you right back into that heart voice, that is going to help you stay the course, help you be successful. And that best version of you, remember he talked about it in like the intro, the best version of you will figure it out. The best version of you already has all the answers. The best version of you already knows. That'll help you tap back into that best version of you. All right. So that was like really it. It was such a good chapter. You know, both of these were really good chapters. I loved the coaching questions. And I mean, I went through them and I'm redoing it again. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. And this is exactly what I needed right now. So I hope you love that. I hope that the scriptures, that you understand, like from a biblical perspective, kind of how those scriptures tie into these two laws. And if you're like, check, I always say, you got to read the Bible for yourself. Don't rely on what I say because I may interpret it different than you do. You got to make sure you're getting into your word and make sure that you know the Bible, those verses. So I encourage you, go through those verses again. Look at the context of the verses, who is God in those verses? What is he talking about? All those things. And then, ask him for wisdom and discernment too. But that's just really what I pulled out of that. So it's time to jam. Becky's like, I don't know, she's got her earbuds on. Becky, you want to jam? Susie's here too. Is it letting you unmute?
I just unmuted myself, yeah.
I just unmuted myself.
Well, let's jam. Any, what were some of your takeaways from this chapter, these two chapters? I'm gonna eat it.
The comparison one, because we always do it too. We always do it. So it's hard sometimes not to do it, but it's super frustrating too. I think I do okay with it, but
give me a time that you compared yourself to somebody else?
I don't know.
Something
I
recent.
can't think of one. I saw this last week, so I know what you're doing. I can't think of some. I mean, the last time I compared myself,
Mhm.
I don't know. You know me. I was like, spoke to somebody.
I
It just
know you, but that
resonated
doesn't
with me.
mean
Like, I thought it was very good on what he said. You know, like even the car situation. Like, I couldn't answer that question because I don't care who else drives another Ford Explorer. My husband drives the other Ford Explorer. It's just a car that I like. But I can understand how comparing yourself to other people um can put you further back, you know, because that's how I used to be. And now I'm not there. So I don't think I struggle with that, with comparing myself. What I struggle with is apologizing for myself. I
Okay.
apologize for my assertiveness that I am. And that was really pointed out to me within the last week. Like, I need to stop.
Apologizing for who you are.
Yeah.
Okay. So why is that a
Because I'll
problem?
be like, you know I can be a little aggressive, and I'm sorry for that. And it's like, I'm not aggressive, but that's how I self-talk to myself.
Mhm.
So I'm telling myself, oh, you can't be assertive without being like aggressive. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm mean. It's just,
Okay.
I just don't care.
Okay. Let's dive into it, shall we? So why is apologizing for who you are a problem? Why is that a problem for you?
Because I think I do it more often than I should. Like, there's times that you need to apologize, but I think I just do it. Couldn't tell you why I do it.
Okay. Walk me through the last time you apologized for who you were.
In a meeting,
Okay. You don't have to give specific names,
right?
but
I was in a meeting and I kept saying, I'm like, I didn't want to throw somebody underneath the bus, or I wasn't trying to get them in trouble. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And instead of just being like, I'm too caring about other people, so I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I don't want to get somebody else in trouble. So I'm always looking for that other person to make sure that I don't hurt them.
why is that a problem for you?
Because if I hurt somebody, then I failed them, I feel.
Oh.
And disappointment. I don't want to disappoint others. I'm big on that.
Okay. So let's just kind of walk through it from the beginning for a minute so that we can all kind of see what's going on. The fact is, you were in a meeting and you were sharing some things in the meeting, and there were things that were about
Other people.
other people. Okay. And you apologize. You're apologizing for things you were saying. And you said, I don't want, I got to put my glasses on. See why you make me do this? I always want to make sure I don't hurt other people. Right?
Right.
So that's the belief that you have going on in your head, the old story. I always want to make sure that I don't hurt other people, which makes you feel disappointed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you feel disappointed in that moment, again, take me back to that meeting. You said that You don't want to make anyone feel like, you don't want to hurt them. Now you're feeling disappointed. Walk me through what you said exactly.
I just retract a lot of what I say at times. Like I'll say it and then I'm like, oh, but I don't want to get him in trouble, or oh, I don't, want you to think a certain way, because I don't want the person that I'm going to think badly of the person. And actually, I was told in the meeting to stop right then and there and to stop apologizing. So the person that I was talking to was a strong enough mindset person to be like, yo, you've done this enough, because I guess I do it at my monthly meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do catch myself.
Okay.
He stopped me. So it instantly, like, my mindset shifted, like, oh, okay, I really do this. So
When you realize that that is something that you do, how did that make you feel?
irritated,
Okay.
because I don't like to, like, because then it's like I really let that person in to see they saw a deeper part of me than I let other people see.
Okay. So what's the problem with that?
Trust. Yeah, issues of trust.
When you start to go into these trust issues, now you're vulnerable because you've opened up yourself a little bit more to someone. In that moment, what's the strongest feeling that's in your body?
Run.
Run? What are we running
Shut
from?
down.
Okay.
Because I don't want you to know we can't get that deep.
First of all, I want to thank you for your vulnerability. And I honor that. I honor that you showed up in this space right here and that you're showing us your vulnerable side. So now you've shut down. What are some things that you do, some actions that you take when you shut down? What does that look like?
When I go into shutdown mode, I usually just, like, go to the next issue in my head. Like, I'll put that in a drawer, put it aside, deal with it later. Don't let that emotion really, like, be there, be valid. A lot of cabinets.
What are some things that, excuse me, what are some actions that maybe you don't take? Some things you don't do when you shut down?
I don't process it. I know that. Like, I know all the answers in my head, but to take action on them is just, it's easier to try to go and fix something else, because I like to fix things. I'm mom. So, mom, there is a problem out there, and mom will try to fix it.
So you kind of, would it be fair to say that you deflect from yourself, and instead of fixing what's going on with you, you go try to fix something or maybe someone?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. And now when you shut down, what are some thoughts that you're thinking when you're in shutdown mode?
There's times that I'll be like, what did you do to, how could you, like, avoid that situation again? Like, yeah, you gotta let that person get too close. So let's avoid that. because I have my inner circle of people that I allow in, and I know that they're real with me. And I've just had too many people in my past that have showed me two different sides. So my inner circle is very close. My outer circle, yeah, if you're not that close, then you can just stay on the outside.
Mhm. So going back kind of, we went through a lot right here. Thank you for that. But I think we were able to pull out a few stories, but I think the one that we walked through a lot was this belief that, I can't be vulnerable. I can't put these walls down.
No, my walls are huge, and I do it in every aspect of my life. And I really need to trust you in order for you to be in that inner circle. I mean, it's to the point where like I'm in another mastermind group, and I literally walked in there in front of like 30 people, sat down and said, I don't know you, I don't trust you, so that's who you get. But until I know you, then I'll trust you. So I've said that to people, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I set up my boundaries, I set up my walls. But I also tell them, but once you're in, you're like family to me, and like it's a ride or die situation. Like I will die for you. But if you're not in that inner circle, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's just a deflective thing.
Yeah. I think you made a really good point about boundaries, right? Because, it's easy to go through life and, we don't set up these healthy boundaries with people. Do you think in the meeting, when you were with this person and, the struggle that comes up with apologizing for yourself, do you believe that apologizing for yourself is more of a boundary, or is it something that keeps you from being Becky?
Keeps me from being Becky because I trust the person, but I don't know if I trust the person as a ride or die person.
Okay.
So there's a different trust level there.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Let's go into some heart voice, because I think you can see that when, that belief of I can't be vulnerable leads you to that feeling of I'm shutting down now, right? And then causes you to take those actions like, I got to read real close because I wrote real small. You don't let your emotions in, you don't let your emotions be valid, you don't process. You go try to fix other people instead of really fixing what's going on inside of your mind. And you try to, your brain starts going through these thoughts of trying to avoid like that person or being in a situation like that again. I think can you see how just from those actions that are caused from that belief, you're telling your brain, I can't be vulnerable. You're just reinforcing those beliefs.
It goes back into telling myself you're not good enough.
There it is.
Yeah. And that's the core of it.
Mm-hmm.
It all stems from that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not good enough to do that. Don't title me because I'm not good enough to do that.
Mm-hmm. I think that was a really big breakthrough moment for you, even saying that out loud. And I'm not saying that just because I know you, but I think that a lot of what we do really stems from that place of I'm not good enough. And so thank you for that. We could talk for hours on that. But I know you got the grandkids over, right? And I know Dave's there, and Dave's like, I don't need her to be a puddling mess all day. But like, again, I'm not good enough. Let's quickly, I'm not good enough. Does that belief come from your head voice or your heart voice?
My head.
So let's look at your heart voice for a second. What does God say about you? Because I know you're a strong Christian. I know that you're a Jesus follower. What do you believe that God says about you?
That I am good enough, that he's made me how I am, and I am perfectly made. So it's just getting through the head part and just getting that out.
Let's come up with a because affirmation for this, because we're never going to really bust through. This is a deep rooted belief too, right? This isn't something that you're going to be able, like, I'm not even going to say your age, but I know that we're around the same age. And so these are deep rooted beliefs that are decades old. A lot of our beliefs, these subconscious beliefs, are decades old, and we're not going to just be like, okay, everything's fine and dandy now. We have to literally reprogram our minds. So let's come up with the because affirmation, right? That you can use to help you when that thought comes up of I'm not good enough, which leads you to start apologizing for your behaviors or for who you are. Let's put up a because affirmation for that, so that we can start literally filling in that rut and then start putting in new seeds from that heart voice. Okay, you cool with that? All right.
Yeah.
So do you remember the because affirmations? Because blank, which would be like the heart voice.
Yeah, no, I don't remember. What page was that on?
Okay, so it'll start with because, and then you want to use a statement that comes from the heart voice. And so remember when I asked you, like, what does God say about Becky? Who is God, like, who is Becky to God? Who is that? What does God say about you?
I think it's page 34. It says fill in the blank because. Repeat what you just said. I had grandkids yelling. Like,
you're good.
I got Bluey on.
I get it. I get it. So we say because, and then that statement that comes after because is something that comes from our heart voice. So with you, your heart voice is the voice of faith. What does God say about Becky?
Because I am worthy.
Because I am worthy in God's eyes. You said something a little bit ago about being fearfully and wonderfully made, right? I think for us as Christians, also tying in scripture, because that's God's promises to us, I think that also helps. So because I am worthy in God's eyes and fearfully and wonderfully made, I'm writing it down, sorry. What are some actions that you would take from this place?
Oh, I have no idea.
Wow.
Not an action person.
What? You're not an action person? You gonna learn today. You gonna learn today. Nobody knows that except for maybe you and me. Maybe Susie knows that when you gonna learn today. But now you want to put in some action behind it, right? Because I am worthy in God's eyes and fearfully and wonderfully made, I will no longer apologize for being who I am.
I like Fix your crown. Fix your crown. You are a daughter of the Most High King, and you are worthy. That's what I was something.
Mandy, you have to text this to me because I can't write it down and look at
I
your face
will
and try to do
text it
it.
to
Getting
you.
long.
Oh my land.
Here, I'll put it in the chat because I want you.
Thank you.
I want
Trying to-
you to read. I'm going to put it in big because I am.
I got my glasses on. You don't have to write it so big.
I have to do it for myself, and you may get some typos in there, but that's okay. All right, because I am worthy in God's eyes and fearfully and wonderfully made, I am no longer apologizing for being who he created me to be. Try it on. How does it feel when you say it? But you got to say it with conviction. And if it doesn't sound like it's good, then we'll work on something else.
I like the way it sounds. Because I am worthy in God's eyes and fearfully and wonderfully made. I am no longer apologizing for being who he created me to be.
Say it with some conviction. Say it like you're saying, like you just got done, like you're yelling it out the streets.
I cannot. I have a house full of people. I will do it later.
That is the best time to do it. And like here's the other thing about like what I do as a coach too is, I'm a life coach, but I'm also a performance coach. So that I'll be messaging Becky later, or I'll see her tomorrow and I'll be like, did you try on that affirmation? How'd that work for you? Do we need to tweak it? Because I'll make, it's that following up to make sure that I'm an action-oriented person. It's good to think things, but if we ain't putting action behind it, then it doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I will do it. I hands-on, I will do it, but I just will not do it because they would come over and be like, what are you doing?
Hey, I am working. I am rewiring my brain, baby. I am filling in the ruts. Well, thank you for allowing me to kind of put you in the hot seat today. I really appreciate it. Great job. That was incredible. That was awesome. I think we really uncovered some stuff. And then for everyone else, next week is week 3, and we're going to be reading chapters 6 and 7. So make sure that you get in there, get in the Facebook group. If you're listening to the podcast, get into the show notes. You still plenty of time, get in there and register so you can get the book, so that you can get into the Facebook group. And I hope that you guys are being blessed by this. You're amazing. I love you all. And, remember, you already have it inside of you. You already have it inside of you. And so I believe that you can, and I know that you can absolutely crush this and rock it. So I love you guys, and I will see you next week. See ya.